All right, so what's up, guys? What's growing on? I hope y'all are happy, well, and safe. I'm hoping this wind doesn't destroy my video audio quality. I do have that kind of dead cat on my microphone to stop some of the fuzzy, but it is blowing here this morning. It is humid here this morning. It is April 13th, the day after Easter. I hope y'all had a happy Easter, and I'm back at Jim Kovaleski's house. We're gonna try to get you some relevant videos to what's going on in the world today. You know, this morning, that article I saw when I first woke up on Yahoo Finance, yesterday it was CNN, that Smithfield is shutting down, one of the largest producers of meat here in the United States. I think they laid off like 40,000 people. You know, that's crazy, you know, and I started digging a little bit deeper. You know, that company is actually owned by China. You know, I've been seeing all kinds of reports about migrant workers, you know, not getting back over here to harvest food. So I think it's really important right now to focus on growing, you know, quick growing crops, kind of survival crops, you know, high caloric intake, high fat intake. So these things that are going to grow fast and feed people, you know, this information is more important than ever. And, you know, that quote by Ron Finley really comes to mind as I'm talking about this. You know, growing your own food is like printing your own money. You know, especially if things start to get any worse economically here. I'm already starting to see the food prices go up in the grocery store. They're creeping up slowly. I've definitely noticed it over the last couple of weeks. So, you know, not only is growing your own food healthier, not only is growing your own food good for you, your state of mind, but it gives us a sense of security. You know, it's something that we have in our front yard. We know that's there. So Jim's going to be here this year, potentially through the summer. So he's kind of, you know, planning like he could be home for a long time. He's got lots of value information to share. He's over here harvesting right now for tomorrow's market, which I believe the Tuesday market's been shut down. And right now Jim actually does like a no contact pickup here on Tuesdays. So Green Dreams is deemed essential. We are essential business because we are a landscape company. We are an essential business because we are an agriculture-based company. So kind of on two levels as far as the deemed essential is running a business. This morning I brought Jim some plants, some seeds, leaving with some veggies for myself and my neighbors. So I didn't just come here to make this video. A couple of different stacked functions, going to pick up plants when I leave here for another job. We are still kind of semi-operating as far as installation work goes in the close range. So I'm gonna shut up. You guys ready to hear Jim talk? Ready for them bombs of knowledge? Hold tight. Gonna have to stay a little further away today, Jim. I gotta keep my social distance, you know?
Things have changed since we saw each other last, haven't they?
You could say that again. Got a little wind today too.
And heat. 90 degrees here yesterday.
So Jim, you could end up here this summer, you know, where you have the possibility of having to feed yourself and feed other locals. I mean, with those kind of thoughts in mind, what are you thinking? What are you growing? What are you doing?
You're looking right in between.
All right.
Some tomatoes that I've never grown here. And then if you look behind you, there's some regular potatoes too. That's
regular potatoes?
Yeah, it's a little late, but I think I'll get
I see them over there.
And there's another row a little short of that. Yeah, so that all got mulched and kind of hilled. But, you know, I've got some okra on the shelf over there, eggplant, peppers. So, I don't know. I'm still thinking I'll get out of here by mid-June or so. I'm hoping. If I can get Mom home, that's the big deal. But, last greens harvest of the year.
So what are your thoughts? I mean, quick growing crops for people that are going to be here throughout the summer, you know, people that have never gardened before. Let's think simple. Let's think, you know, getting started.
Well, getting started, you know, it's all about organic matter, and, you know, we always want to be doing the quickest thing first and put off what really is going to benefit in fall. I mean, if we're still hungry in fall, you could have a heck of a garden going if you start now with, you know, a bunch of organic matter. I use the new Port Richey compost. If you get that, any kind of organic matter, sheet mulch idea, if you can get all kinds of varieties of it. And then I'd recommend, you know, sweet potatoes, black-eyed peas in that, maybe some Seminole pumpkin. I think I'm going to try some of those. And, you know, some of the perennial stuff, which I'd always put off, you know, the Malabar spinach and the Okinawan spinach and all that kind of thing. That would be something. And then if we are still in this situation, come September, October, start doing your winter crops. Maybe think more in carbohydrates, more potatoes, that kind of thing. Because we can grow a lot of leafy greens, but I mean, that doesn't really fill the belly all that well. So I think that's what I'd look for. Onions too, you know, that's something I've never done because it took so long and with space, but I saw how well they did this year. I did a little patch of them.
So I think you could potentially be eating sweet potato leaves this year, Jim. This might be a first.
Well, I could eat them right now. They keep popping up. Yeah, it might be a first. So again, this whole idea of you know, having a lot of crop in one spot over the same year. So this year, I mean, these are baby lettuces, right? That it was 90 degrees yesterday and there's no tip burn on this, right? But I planted them understory of the tomatoes. And so now I'm actually lifting up the tomato leaves and getting the lettuce out from underneath it. And so I'll have my last greens mix of the year out of that.
So that basically you kind of extended your season with some dappled light from the tomatoes.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, I like that.
So that's a good thing. Yeah, and then the tomatoes themselves, I found, you know, I've always had problems anytime I've tried to grow tomatoes. They always get, I think it's that early blight where all the leaves get all, and I tried like 4 varieties this year, and 3 of them got it, you know, pretty bad, but they're still producing. You will see that Campari's got it really bad, but just a lot of tomatoes. I bet I got 60 or 80 pounds off those. But this variety, which I think is called 4th of July, is sitting on top of one that's got the disease over there, I'll show you, and it has none of it. So that's where genetics can definitely pay off, and that's where if you talk or look in seed catalogs and other growers, when they talk about resistant to nematodes, resistant to this kind of blight, it's worth doing instead of just picking any tomato. Just because it looks good and it might taste good, but it might not function well in this climate. So you know, I've always been into that. Potatoes are another one. For Florida, I definitely recommend an early potato, because in Maine, I'll put those in the ground, you know, about when I get there mid-May, and I'll have potatoes in 60 days. If I use Anushka or that Red Norland, they're really short potatoes. The other ones that are keepers are 120, 90, somewhere in there, and we don't got that window here for the right temperatures. These are early Norland, I think, and they might finish, you know, I might end up with potatoes this big. But I'm pushing an envelope there and see if it's worth it, you know. If we cool down and get some rain, it might be. Yeah, that's okra, and then there's some in here, some of those red noodle beans. I'm going to try those on a trellis because they're hot weather.
Now, Jim, we had about 500 questions about your trays in the soil block video. This isn't the same kind of tray. What do you use in here?
So this is the one where I use the 1.5 inch soil blocks.
Okay.
Where I plant the seeds directly in a fairly large block instead of the 2 inches, a little smaller, 1.5 inches. But it's got its own little hole, and big seeds like okra and beans, they're so much easier to get in there than trying to do those in the minis. And I also have done some Cindy gave me some Roselle, and I tried those, and you know, not very good germination, but that's probably enough when I talk to people how much they produce. But I mean, these are the 3/4 inch blocks, you know. So, and then since we're here, those are the early blight tomatoes, right? It's called Campari, but they're finishing. I can't believe it. Look at this one. I mean, with all that ugly foliage there, it's still, you know, I should have staked that up there, but it's still ripening. I mean, they're so sweet. And the other thing I've noticed about Florida, I've never grown tomatoes, but on the ground, they're not being eaten by the bugs. I mean, if in Maine, you get anything that touches the ground, the slugs get it. But I mean, they can definitely just be on the ground and have no damage.
Wow.
And then look at how aggressive that vine is. So follow where the vine is and see how it's going up over on top of those crinums. So they're keeping them off the ground. So, but I bet I've got, you know, 60, 80 pounds off this, you know, so far this year.
Wow.
And then I've got other coming on. I mean, look at this. But people are just crying for these tomatoes.
They look beautiful.
And I think Claudie told me the saltwater when she was at Geraldson's. They had a saltwater and treated well there, and she was claiming that it had the best tasting tomatoes she's ever had because of that. Now here's that example I was telling you. So these, I think this one's called Oregon Spring. See how ugly? But I mean, they're set in bigger tomatoes, but there's one underneath there, and this is one of the 4th of July's. No disease on the foliage, and they're touching each other. I mean, I'm not one to take out, you know, foliage leaves. I just let them rest or do whatever they want to do, and that's it. And there's something else I haven't grown before. Well, ain't some over here.
I saw the one flowering, yeah.
Well, I was surprised. Usually I get pickleworm in them, but there's been some. That one's gonna get picked for my market tomorrow. I think this variety called Raven.
Whoa, that's a stud.
Yeah, so I think about 10 days ago, I made a trench. I don't know if you can see it now, they're starting to pop up here. I'll dig down and show you. So I just stuck a bunch of potatoes in the ground, and you see that one sprouting. But what I'll do is, you know, probably, and it'll still be for 4 weeks yet before I plant this other end, I'll just take that, break it off the potato. You can try to put the potato back in the ground. It might do it again if you need more. And then you just break these off. And plant them. Then I'll just go through about 3 foot on center, do that all across this garden, all half acre of it. And that'll be the sweet potatoes. I mean, it's a pretty simple process. You can probably buy any organic sweet potatoes at a market. I don't think they're ever treated to keep them from sprouting. So these are all Jets, Georgia Jets, which I've always grown. Seems like they're the best here. But I've got that purple passion that I probably got, I don't know, maybe 300 tubers in the ground here.
All for slip production?
Yeah, same thing. This is there was like 3 trenches and they're just starting to come up. A lot came up since yesterday. And the same thing, I'll dig those up, so there's like, yeah. It'll be good. I was a little nervous because they had a little white spots on them. I thought they might have had some kind of disease that might stop them from sprouting, but they did fine. Because these are the ones I just held over that were too ugly that I didn't want to sell. So, that's that.
Jim, you getting some mangoes in Port Richey?
Yeah.
What? Is this
and they
Kent
really
or
like
Kent?
the
What are you
drought.
talking
I think it might be a Kent.
Port Richey mangoes outside, no greenhouse. Okay.
But understory.
Understory. Whoa, we are under the oak tree, little protection from the north.
And you know, who knows? There's that whole thing that oaks are doing something with citrus and might do something with mangoes. Who knows?
That's exciting.
And since we're back here, you know, when I talk about, remember how I was saying that my compost has been hard ever since I moved from the other place across the street? And this is what I used to do over there. So everything that's coming out of the garden is getting piled up here. And then I still got some leftover compost that wasn't so clean. So I'm throwing that on top, and then I'll top it with the Port Richey compost. And when I come back, if I come back, I mean, I might not leave, but next fall, that'll be awesome compost for my soil blocks. I'll sift that and I'll be off to the races. And I think that's been my limiting factor on the soil blocks this year. But it's amazing how that'll just all go down.
That's new since I was here last. You're composting again.
Yeah, well, that was something I missed. You know, I didn't have it, and I really was missing that because there's always that. And I, you know, if I do the same thing I did last time, it should give me the same results. I mean, I was always pushing for different things. So last time you were here, this was what I was planting. Remember that? They were just little tiny things, and they've pretty much all finished. I went through this morning, all the lettuces are gone. But the cauliflower, careful where you step here. Look at the cauliflower. For one that was planted in probably mid-February, look at the size of that. Whoa! I mean, that's going to market tomorrow. And then also something, I mean, I've never grown eggplant. Look at that eggplant. I mean, that's a happy one.
Got some flowers too.
It's just starting to flower, so that might be eating them. And then the late carrots that I planted only like 6 weeks ago, they're coming on. And then again, these are the 4th of July. And they're just so
Those are the
lush.
healthiest looking tomatoes ever, huh?
Yeah, I've never had anything looking like that. And I'm gonna let them sprawl. I've been staking the first stem and letting everything sprawl, because if it's on the ground and doesn't get eaten, I can pick them there. Because I mean, if you look at it, I did this with sungolds in Maine. If you trim, you know, everybody prunes tomatoes, right? But every one of them shoots is about, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks behind the original stock or the original one. And so they're just a little behind. They'll fruit as much as the other one. So I used to get, you know, 30 and 40 pints off 6 plants twice a week. You know, whereas the regular growers are lucky to get that off, you know, 40 plants. So I'm gonna do that here and hope, because these 4th of July, they're only about that big.
So almost a cherry, but a little bigger.
Yeah, flavor, and they're clustered, yeah. So that's, it looks like they got a little stripe to them, so we'll see. And they're kind of pretty. But this was a 60-day tomato too, and again, that's the idea about getting things in that window when we have appropriate temperatures. That's what I've been doing. And then more cauliflower rock, and a late planting of beets. So these are put in the ground late February, right? So you'd think a cold season beet, but there is some. I mean, that's a nice beet. No nematode damage. You know, I'll be selling those tomorrow. People, I can't get enough beets. And then some late huckerized. So, I mean, I'm still having stuff in this 90-degree heat that's traditionally a cold season veggie. And then look at the broccoli.
What?
I mean, that's the last planting of broccoli, but that'll be harvested tomorrow too. So it really extended my season this year. And just because I went for it, thinking I might get stuck here. So I mean, you know, I made $500 at one market last week just because I had this, and I didn't even expect to have that much. But
Whoa, what's growing on here?
well, avocados are setting pretty good. I'm not seeing many on the ground, but you know, there's a few on there. There.
Ooh, I see lots of little guys up in there.
Up in there. I mean, so we'll see. Last year there was probably 40 on it when it came back, but it'd be great if there's 100 or so.
Nice.
And I mean, and they're a late maturing variety. You can have them until March.
Is this Lula?
No, I think it's Monroe.
Monroe. Okay.
Way back when. It doesn't get huge. I mean, all those avocados get huge, but not most of them. And then look what's hiding under there.
Little pineapple understory.
Yeah. I was surprised. I've never got to eat them either because I'm always gone when they seem to be fruity. But I'll probably eat that one.
So you've never been here for a pineapple, huh?
Way back when I planted it, even before I was into, you know, the farming part of it, I had some of those ornamentals that went to flower and produce fruit.
So we're gonna have to keep an eye on if you're here this summer, huh?
Yeah, it'll be different. You know, let me think. Whitwam Organics sent me an email. Oh, I got all these warm season things you should try. So maybe I'll give him some money and see. You know, he had some melons and some
heat tolerant lettuce and stuff like that.
Well,
too,
see,
right?
I'm growing the heat tolerant lettuce. I turned him on to a couple of things he's selling. That Jericho, the heat tolerant, came out of Israel, and then that Brassica broccoli. That one's he's growing, and that's takes up a lot of space, but you know, that's broccoli.
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a ragged time of year.
That's all right. It still looks good. Thanks for the knowledge and time. I know you're really busy these days. Got to keep people fed, you know. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, they're coming out of the woodwork. Definitely, you know, I'm trying to keep it under wraps a little bit about, you know, that I'm selling out here on Tuesdays, that because people are finding out about it, and they were, you know, cars all lined up there. And cops, I guess, have been giving some people a hard time with, you know, too much closeness, but
You gotta let them in one at a time.
that's kind of what I'm doing.
Okay.
You know, we keep them apart and they wait, and you know, I don't even touch the money. You know, I let them put it in a bag, and then from there, you know, I'm the only one that touches the food too. So I fill their bags, that nobody's rustling through to see what is happening. You know, because a lot of times they want that one or that one. I'll just let them point. So
Nice. Well, we'll do another one here soon. We'll do an air fist pump. Don't touch me now. Don't go. Whoa,
things have changed.
Things have changed. All right, guys, brought you another video with the master. He might be here this summer. I knew he'd have some pretty awesome, relevant stuff to share at this time. I hope you guys enjoyed this, got something out of this video. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. And y'all know how we do, most importantly, pound dirt.